we didn't talk about this before the stream. Bonus Action Heroes subtitle insight check.
I like it.
Hazel suggested that. I think it was the very first suggestion, and I think it's clever.
It's genius.
Where we just have a chat about something to do with D&D. Who knows? And if we keep doing this, we might run out of D&D things, and it might be something else, like a soju tasting stream. Which is what we just talked about. But this week, this first ever Just Chatting D&D stream, we wanted to talk about death. Because, obviously, death
because
in D&D.
why not?
It is a part of D&D. Although, I would argue not as big a part of D&D as it used to be. We can come on to that.
Could have added it to my plan. But we did recently have a very near brush with death in Icewind Dale, which you can catch if you are interested. As we met up with the Frost Maiden unexpectedly. But we didn't die.
We were so close, though. We should have died.
We should have. It was one of those situations where it started out, looked like overwhelming odds. We decided to go for it anyway and started to get the upper hand, and then it got worse. So, yeah, I think we almost felt like death was inevitable, didn't we?
I would say that in D&D 5e, I can't talk about other versions because I haven't played other versions. It is quite difficult to die. So just in case any noobs are watching, sorry, I just called you noobs. I wanted to quickly just go over dying in D&D. When you reach 0 hit points, you start rolling death saves. Someone needs to remind me, is it 0 to 10 a fail or 0 to 9? 0 to 9?
You have to get over 10, so yeah. I
so
think
10
you get
to
10
20.
or more.
Then it is a pass.
If you get 3 successfuls, you effectively stabilize. If you get 3 fails, you die.
And what about 1s and 20s?
Yeah, so 1s and 20s I think vary a little bit depending on who's playing, but yeah, effectively a 20 is a critical success, so you generally go to 1 hit point and become conscious. I think a 1 is usually 2 failures, so if you roll a 1, you got 2 death save fails, so you only got 1 more and you're dead.
It's first to 3. Really?
Yes, yeah, effectively. It's pretty simple, and the fact that you get a 10 or more, it's kind of slightly in favor of success anyway. So dying is kind of hard unless you do something stupid, which some of us are pretty good at, right?
And then there are the options. If you do still fail all of your death saves, you've got spells like Revivify. You could Resurrection, Reincarnate. I feel like there's another one. Raise Dead.
Yeah.
There might be more if you know. I have a limited knowledge despite calling other people noobs. Why did I do that? I am very much a noob. I will always be a noob. There are so many rules.
You're just cleverly generating conversation.
And I think it's important also to say DMs shouldn't be afraid to kill their players, but that doesn't mean you should constantly be trying to kill your players.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, I've fallen into this trap as well. You know, D&D is a game. It's a storytelling game. It's supposed to be fun, and you often play it with your friends. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to upset my friends. So I have gone through those situations when I restarted GMing probably 3 or 4 years ago with another group of friends. I kind of was a bit scared of setting up the encounters because I'm sure we'll come on to the challenge rating system in 5th edition it's a chocolate teapot to be honest. It kind of seems to work like probably between like level 6 and level 10. It seems like it's actually pretty close. But before that, it's really hard to get right and it's easy to wipe out your players. After that, I'll be honest, I've never really played past level 12, so I don't know. But I became really afraid of of murdering my whole group, so I'd probably go a bit soft on them. And I think a soft, an easy battle is not always very exciting. So I think it just comes with experience. Over time, I've known how to ramp it up and ramp it up and ramp it up until it feels dangerous, but without it being it. And then the next level is the game last week with Steve, which you can see on our stream, where it felt like impossible odds. And then we started to win, and then it felt even more dangerous, and it turned into a retreat. I mean, that's like next level encounter design, really.
It was a roller coaster. But then I think Steve did some amazing things with that game. The foreshadowing, so we knew we were going into something big. We had a vision from one of the tribe leaders that this was going to happen. Didn't listen to it, but we knew it was coming, so we could have important conversations.
It wasn't shared with the wider group, and I messed up. I'm sorry.
I'm on your side, Hazel. A vision is just a vision. We don't know the whole picture.
I really enjoy. I rewatched that stream back, and I really enjoyed watching. It was like, oh look, there's some foreshadowing, and this is going to be bad. Don't do it. And then there's another one, and another one, and another one. It was kind of like the GM was literally telling us over and over again, "This is too much of a fight for you. You really shouldn't do it."
But importantly, he was showing, not telling.
He was, and I think the fact is, we thought we knew what we were getting into, so we were willing to take the risk. But then he switched it up on us, which made it a lot more exciting. And it did feel like someone was going to die. I literally updated my will for my character, all sorts of things like that, because
this is what I want to talk about: the player perspective. When you go into a session thinking, "I might die."
Yeah.
I know you have made a will that inspired me to. I've got a little document where I've thought about what my character's last words would be, and I thought, even if I never get to use them, fingers crossed, they can be used in other RP situations where we've got high stakes or we have brushes with death, and it gave me a chance to reevaluate what I think about those characters. And I'd previously written some last words when we were going to fight a dragon, and admittedly not much, but doing that, going back to them and updating them, was kind of a good exercise.
Yeah.
In that my relationships with the characters have changed since that point, even though it was probably only a week ago in game.
Yeah, definitely. My will I first wrote when characters that aren't around anymore were around, so I had to go back and update it. But I update it periodically because the story changes, the relationships change, and the bonds with certain characters get stronger. And I don't know, maybe I'm mean, but my will's almost a chance to call the assholes, and because my character in that game is he's kind of a bit wet when it comes to telling people they're being jerks. But no, he's not. That's probably a lie. But anyway,
he hasn't got the highest charisma.
He hasn't got very high charisma, no. He's a bit of he does flip flop a bit, doesn't he? Back and forth. But it was really fascinating to me to go into that and look at what would each character. And I'll be honest, that will was written to impact the players reading it. If my character died, it's purely done to generate role play. Nothing more really, because I think that's what it's all about. Death is such a wonderful tool in D&D to motivate characters, to generate role play, create that emotion, create the weight that a story needs for it to feel really fulfilling. And I think it is one of the issues with 5e that it's so hard to die. In third edition, I died all the time. My GM was a bit fed up with me because I just constantly was losing characters. He even ended up just bringing one back, which we'll go on to resurrection and stuff a bit later, because that was harder too. But death generates so much story, and I think it's almost sadly so rare in 5e that you kind of miss out. And you'll know we're constantly planning what we're going to do if we die. I had a little. I can't really share it with you because I don't want to spoil it. I wish I could share it with like the stream, but not with you, because I've got things lined up that I don't mean it to be mean, but I think for you, Veronica, playing Cass, if Tok died, I think it would be it'd be a punch in the gut, basically. You know, a really traumatic but powerful moment, which I think would show the depth of characters' feelings and such. So,
Hugely.
yeah, I love it.
I mean, at the other end of the like in Icewind Dale, the game that we're talking about, that's our original game, the one that we've been playing for 2 years. So where we have the strongest bonds between our characters. So death is going to have that sort of impact. But equally at the other end of the scale in Curse of Strahd, Cedric, I think, died on day 2 or 3. You barely knew him. But because you'd all been thrown into this nightmare setting altogether and all you had was each other, it still had a really significant impact in the way it helped you bond together. I think it was a really great thing for you to RP over, remembering this guy that you barely knew but felt suddenly really close to. And I think I was rewatching streams the other day actually, and I think the opportunity for callbacks, I think Hazel, you said as Alessander, in Cedric's name, I choose to see the light or something. And it's just moments like that. It creates gold.
I do think you need that push sometimes. It was really easy in Curse of Strahd because of the way Alexander felt about Cedric. But this has been the first time in Icewind Dale where death has been a very legitimate option. And so far, my character in that, it hasn't really mattered to her if she died. She didn't feel that she had that many stakes in anything. It was just, we might be useful in this, we might not. We'll give it a go. If I die, I'm a little goblin girl, it doesn't matter. But over the last few games and what we've managed to do, her view of everything in the group, like she's starting to think of having a future. So I have for Curse of Strahd, because we've witnessed death and I know the character and it's very kind of dramatic.
And we don't feel we're ever going to get out.
Oh yeah, and I think my character in that, Alexander, has accepted that. So he's got, like, I know what his last moments will be. I know what his last thoughts will be. But I hadn't considered it for Eris in Icewind Dale. And now I know, like, she's not considered it either. So
no, well, she's very young, and I think roleplay wise, young, you know, when you're young, you think you're immortal. I think that's a reality of real life as well. So it's a nice touch, really.
But I also
I feel like I'm immortal.
But to a certain extent, she doesn't know that she can have a life. And so it's only now that she's seeing other people talking about what they're going to do and what they want to achieve. And that little chat she had with Fred Reader. So before everything kicked off, our Goblin Druid, my character Eris, and then Fred Reader, who is our Goliath Wizard, had a lovely little chat about what happens if they die. Like, Fred Reader doesn't want his books to be taken, so he wants them returned to his mother and whatnot. And I was just like, Eris hasn't gone to school and she loves these books. She wants to know more. And I'm like, okay, now she's going to school. If she gets out of this, she's going to school. If she dies, what does this mean? So it's given a bit more. So now she's got a plan for the future. I know what job she wants to do as an adult.
Well, that brings up a really key point for me. You can answer that in a minute. But it's all these little things. So I always think of like an old war film where they're sat in the truck or on a plane waiting to parachute in, and the guy shows the picture of his sweetheart to the other soldiers. You know, as a storytelling trope, you know that soldier's probably going to die. It's a means of getting you to connect with him and understand his his discomfort and his pain and his, and then when he dies, it has more impact. And I think these kind of things, I've got to have the same thing with my character Tok, is he keeps talking about having a little cabin by a lake and not having to fight anymore. And for me, the same with you and Threadreader talking about going to the library and reading books and going to school. It all adds weight to the combat, because they're fighting to beat the big bad, but really they're fighting for their own future. And I think that really enhances the fear of death. We've got other games, haven't we, where the party aren't bonded, they don't have connections. I mean, Out of the Abyss is a good example, where I don't even think they like each other. It's more of like a necessity, like we're together. They might start to like each other accidentally, but there isn't the same weight of feeling, and there's not some bright future that's going to be taken away. So I think it's really beautiful, and we did a lot of that the last few sessions where we were, this is what the future looks like, and it just it's another form of foreshadowing of the battle, of this is what's at stake. It's more than just the world, it's the personal stories of each character.
I think you're pointing out a key thing there, in that we play role-play heavy, we play long-running campaigns. Death, depending on how you run your game, death might have a lot less impact. But if you're running a game that is long-running like ours, when you first go into it, you're pretty much just an adventure. You're usually there to make coin or some other very surface-level motive. But as you get more invested in the game, more invested in the other characters, your motives change. And I think that moments like this, where we've come close to death, have given us a chance to reevaluate what those motives are, so that they're still changing throughout the game.
No, that's spot on. That's spot on. So I really love that. And also, if I'm honest, there's a little bit of me that is like, with Steve, I'm like showing the picture of the sweetheart to Steve to say, do your best, GM. I could take it.
Don't bait the GM. I mean, okay, this is what I wanted to move on to. There's a lot of how much control does the DM have over dying? So the creatures that we're coming into contact with, we're picking those. How you deal with them as players, that's on you if you're foolish. But I think I see a lot of posts on Reddit or whatever Facebook groups where they're like, people are like, I think I'm gonna TPK, our last session ended really badly and stuff like that. And again, it depends how you play your game, but I don't necessarily think a TPK is the best ending. I think good stories have hope.
Yes.
TPK I would reserve for a battle royale style thing, and it's important to remember that you're behind the DM screen. You have the power to change that. I think Matt gave me some really good advice when I was unsure about balancing encounters, and we were talking about how difficult that is in 5e, where you said, if you should probably take over on this. It was two things. It was, if it's not difficult enough, send in a second wave, and if you're not sure if it's too powerful, could it kill you in one hit?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, I often, with encounters, where, because you can't always judge them, sometimes you will make mincemeat of it. And I think it's important to roll back. D&D 5e is designed to be like 5 or 6 encounters a day, and pretty much most of them being sort of medium, which most parties would find quite easy. And then, a couple of hard ones maybe on the end. So by the end of the day, you've used all your abilities, and any fight feels a lot more fraught and a lot more dangerous. I think because of how long combat takes, most of us don't want to do 5 or 6 combats, especially if a load of them are a walkover in a day before we get to the nasty one. So I tend to go for 2 or 3 harder ones. I almost sort of often go up to deadly and then bring it back very slightly. And I find 2 or 3 of those are quite effective. But if you're really not sure, which especially at lower levels it's easy to get wrong, I just have waves. So if it's and it probably feels a little bit cheating. It's better than fudging, the hit points. And some people talk about fudging hit points. I'm not really a fan of that. You know, sometimes my monsters will brutalize you, and other times you'll kill them, and I'll be like, "What happened? They didn't do anything." So the waves
I think
works
that's
really well,
important.
and if they win and they're battered, then you can just not send it in, which I know is probably spoiling the surprise a bit, but it is pretty much true.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You don't want to fudge anything, but it's just important to remember you're in control, and if your players aren't enjoying the way this encounter's going, half of you are dead. You could fudge their hit points. You could make it a bit easier. I'm not saying that you should, but that we do have control over it ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately, if you're running a bought module, I mean, a great example is I did White Plume Mountain as part of the other Out of the Abyss game. It's not streamed. It's the original group of friends, old friends, and I rejigged the whole thing, and it's the first time probably in 3 years with that group where I've put encounters in that were probably quite easy, that they wouldn't have any trouble with, because there were so many of them, and it's such a big dungeon. And I was worried because they were walking over a lot of stuff. But over time, I did see how it was designed to be. You know, they gradually got worn down until it came to the very final fight where they had literally nothing left. The cleric had like a 4th level spell and a 1st level spell. You know, there was a rogue, a warrior, and a barbarian, and they literally had, I think, a warlock as well. They had nothing left. They had no spells, no abilities. They pretty much had a couple of healing potions and that, and they had the chance to walk away, and they decided to go for the boss fight. And it literally came down to you didn't know whether the players were going to die or the boss was going to die. And I can't claim that I did it on purpose. It was so wonderfully spot on. The evil wizard that they were fighting, they actually got away. He was down to like 10 hit points, but 3 of the group were down. The cleric had 1 level 4 spell left. She did prayer of healing. Everyone was back up, but not really, pretty close to death still. It does show, if you do the adventuring day, with lots of not so bad encounters, it actually can still lead to that dramatic finish. But for me, we like to role play. I don't think we want to spend 80% of our time in combat, because it'll take us years to do anything. Don't know what you guys think.
No, I agree. Sorry, go ahead, Hazel.
I was just going to say, kind of like when the cleric spends her last spell slot saving a mushroom rather than the other players.
Yes. Yeah, you do like saving that mushroom.
But at that point, it was just the 1 spell slot. We were early level, so this was Out of the Abyss. Early level, 1 spell slot. Do I go for the RP of loving that mushroom more than anything else? Yes, I do.
Yeah, no, that was another wonderful example actually of designing an encounter. So in the book, it's got a certain number of things, but I designed an encounter that would test you, that would be hard, or so I thought. But then I added some extra waves in around the maze, if you like, around that dungeon. But it was up to you whether you didn't have to necessarily face them all at once, but if you made lots of noise and whatnot, then you might end up with them all coming together. But what I loved about that was you'd had quite a fraught fight, and you actually walked past the exit to go and fight the last squad of them, and you ended up with half the party down, and your character went and saved an NPC mushroom, and just you spare the dying on the rest of them, right? So
I mean, we're role players. We're also completionists. We finish that area.
There's no achievement for death. Maybe there should be.
There's that thing that there's always the question of what if. What if we miss something? What if we are supposed to be doing this? And I think that it kind of goes back to the foreshadowing. Like, sometimes it's foreshadowed in a way that you're like, yeah, we're not going to mess with it. Like, there's been certain encounters where my head has been going, we should not be going after this dragon. Why are we in this building? But my character's like, yeah, we can handle this. And then, so the thing I love about all of the sessions, but obviously Icewind Dale, I think, is the one where it's clearest to see, especially with Steve, is he'll foreshadow stuff, but if we don't want to go with the foreshadowing, he lets us.
Yeah.
There's it's our mistake. Let us make it, and I think that gives us. It makes it more real. Like, people mess up. We should regret things. If we're not making these mistakes, it's all going to be a walk in the park. It's going to be too easy. We need the near TPKs to a certain extent,
Yeah.
but it's getting them right. It's feeling like we've achieved something by surviving, rather than knowing that we've been a near TPK because it was unbalanced, and then the DM has had to save us because it all went wrong. That feels a bit weird to me. I don't enjoy that aspect of it.
We have had that in another game where, yeah, clearly the encounter we perhaps shouldn't have fought, and we did. There is a bit of a. I do think there is a bit of a habit, and we're all guilty of it, of thinking that every fight in D&D should be winnable, and I think I did that with my other group at the start. But not every fight should be winnable. But at low levels, it's hard to, running away is hard. At higher levels, as we saw, we're all level 8. It was an overwhelming battle. We're outnumbered 2-1, but we were like, if we play it smart, we can win. And then other things joined the fray, and it became clear instantly, okay, this is bad now. But it was clever use of abilities, clever use of skills, and that's far more rewarding gameplay than a medium encounter that, you might feel heroic because you've, no offense, Hazel, you've butchered 20 goblins without any much issue, but yeah, you want to feel. And this brings onto a really, it made me think about a friend of mine. The guy's, his name is Gavin G. Smith. He actually is an author, so if you like ultra gritty sci-fi, then check Gavin G. Smith out. But he was my old GM in 3rd edition, and all his encounters were brutal. If you made a mistake, you're probably going to die, which someone like me who has got aphantasia, which means I don't have a very good mind's eye, I can't visualize very well. He would all do theatre of the mind. I would often misunderstand the situation, make a stupid decision, and die. But the one thing that stands out for me about Gavin's games, his storylines were amazing, and the sort of lessons within his stories were amazing. But when you got to the end of a battle, you felt like you'd earned it. And I think in Icewind Dale last week, we felt like we'd earned it. It wasn't a cakewalk. It was really brutal. It was really difficult. If everyone hadn't have done the best that they could do at every moment, probably half of us, if not more, would have been dead. And that's the lesson I took from Gavin's games. Hi Gavin, I hope you're watching at some point. But he knew, and maybe 3rd edition's easier to balance, but everything was really hard. But the sense of achievement that you actually got through it was like nothing else.
I would argue that running away, well, not argue, I think seeing an encounter is too hard and choosing to run is just another excellent opportunity for roleplay, and makes me think of hot take. I really like the old Bone Grinder being so early on in the Curse of Strahd campaign, because it's a lot of players say that they TPK at that point, which isn't great. And to be fair, there isn't a lot of foreshadowing. There are clues that will lead you to leave.
The clue I think that you're playing Curse of Strahd.
Yes.
I think that's all the clue you really need. We all twigged that, we're all experienced players. We knew what that was, but we were trying hard not to metagame, so we did it anyway.
It's difficult.
We had pretty much left. I tried to sneak in to save some children, and the rest of us just walked back on in. We knew better.
We did.
But a lesson in humility and understanding how dangerous the world you're in that early on in a game, I think, is very interesting if handled well. Like I said, if you do, I wouldn't want, because I knew I was running a long-running campaign, I wouldn't want all of you to have died, which I was very new to DMing then and probably could have killed more of you. But I only made the decision to attack someone past them going down because they were the only person left. And that brings me to a point I wanted to make about being a DM and knowing what your monsters are doing. Like, a wolf is only going to be thinking of survival first and foremost, so they're just going to try and take out everyone. They're not going to keep going back to the same one. Whereas if you've got a villain like a vampire, someone who has some intellect, then they might think like that. They might think, if they see someone that they recognize as a cleric, go for the cleric, and that makes a battle harder. I think it would feel very unfair. Well, here's a question. Hazel, if you'd been hit by a frost giant, but after you went to 0, just continued to be pummeled into the ground, that would feel unfair as a player, right? It doesn't make...
Do we mean like actually kind of happened?
It made sense in that game, in that
that's the thing.
Yeah.
It made sense, and everyone else was still up. It wasn't... In no way did I feel like I was being targeted or that it was unfair. And I think there could be situations where it could very easily be different.
Yeah,
you're thinking, like, it doesn't make sense for them to attack my character. And, like, even at one point in the game, Steve moved was about to move and attack one person. And it's like, actually, no, that means they've got to go past someone. They're not going to do that. They're going to go for this other person. So you can see, like, what is the character going to do? Yeah. And then that doesn't feel as targeted or as unfair as it could do. Yeah,
well, I think you're probably... Are you referring, Veronica, to The Monsters Know What They're Doing?
Yes.
Yes, Keith Amman, I think.
Yeah.
It is a great book. I made the mistake of giving Steve a copy of that.
I've read it while I've been at your house.
Yeah. It's a great book, and I think, it does. If a stone frost giant pummels you into the snow, it does feel unfair. But ultimately, I think you have to look at it that if it is a real living role play world, the monsters want to win too. They want to live. They want to go home. They want the treasure. So they would do that. If it sounds brutal, but Eris is a druid. She can heal people. So what's the best way? Take out the cleric. Take out the druid.
I'm assuming a giant
has do that in my
intellect.
games, and I will do that. Yeah, if they're clever enough. That's where that book's really good, because it gives you each. There's a blog, in fact, you can read it for free. So go read the blog. It's great. The monsters know what they're doing. But certain animals might not be clever enough to know to pick on the cleric. But if they're a humanoid, they're probably going to know. They're probably going to know, and they're probably going to do it. Goblins will be dangerous with the right tactics, with bows and height and all of that good stuff. There's no reason they shouldn't be as brutal as possible. And I'm sure Gavin would agree with me.
And it's like Eris was by herself. She was completely separate to everyone else. It's not like it could use first attack on one and then swing around for someone else. It was this is the only legitimate target in this area.
Well, I thought that your character was dead. If I'm honest, I thought
I thought my character was dead.
She's got the key. She's all the way over there. We're stuffed. I actually thought we were all dead at that point. And he hit you once, and then I think he hit you again. But you were already down on the first hit. But he'd already declared he was hitting you. So it's an automatic crit when you're down. It's 2 death saves. So
I want to ask a difficult question.
Hi, Aventurian. Thank you for joining us.
There are certain monsters, abilities, or spells that can just outright kill someone. A disintegration ray. I think when a mind flayer kills you, they can take over your body, and that's it. You're gone.
Mind flayers are even grosser than that. They basically eat your brain, but they can plant a tadpole in your ear, which slowly eats your brain from the inside, and that's how they take over your body. So they're lovely things.
When is it okay to throw that sort of shit at your players?
That's a hard question. That's a hard question.
I would argue that if I knew I was putting that in my player's way, I would want them to have. I wouldn't want it to be like, a random encounter table. That's ridiculous. It's something they're building up to. They know it's a big, big, bad, evil guy coming.
Yeah.
So they will have been doing some research. They will have probably been shopping to get some extra tools to help them.
Yeah.
They know it's going to be a difficult fight. I would never want to surprise anyone with that.
I don't know. You see, in my other game, I definitely surprised them with a mind flayer.
But you're in the Out of the Abyss campaign. They're everywhere.
But, well, yeah.
I mean, I think it's very much dependent on context. Like, sometimes it makes sense, and that's not so bad. But yeah, like if I just got randomly, if I was walking through a field and suddenly there's just a wizard I say hi to, and I get power word kill.
Power word kill.
I'm like, what the bejeebus? Like, no, that's unfair.
Well, you see, you say that because I often do that. If
I often power word kill people.
No. But
in the middle of nowhere without any context.
My strategy, and I think this generally makes a combat feel dangerous, and I'm sure people, hi Aventurian, you might disagree with me here, but if you're fighting an NPC and they're a caster or they've got an ability, right, I will hit you with their strongest ability straight away. If it's area effect and I can get loads of you, I will do it, because then you are automatically on the back foot. You're wounded. You're thinking, whoa, he just did, I don't know, whatever it was, power word kill on someone. Yeah, they're not dead, but they could have been. It ups the sense of danger, the excitement, all of that stuff. So and why would they not?
I'm all for that within reason, because obviously I went into the Icewind Dale battle and I'm like, wall of fire, as many as possible, tidal wave these people. But like, there's going to be certain classes and certain campaigns where I think something like power word kill is always going to be a bit OP. Like, I've so far not seen a wizard or a druid in any of our games go over 100 hit points. I'm at level 8, and I'm like 50 something hit points as Eris.
Yeah, so disintegrate's worse, trust me.
Yeah, so I don't know these spells enough. I have never been high enough level,
and I hope you never do.
I've got NPCs. There is NPCs. I'm gonna, it's no spoilers. I'm not telling you who they are and where they are, but there are NPCs before you get to level 10 in Out of the Abyss that have disintegrate. And for those that don't know, and I'm going off memory, and I'm probably getting it wrong, if you've got 60 hit points left and it does 60, you're dust. Yeah, there's no. If you're not dead, if you're not on below 0, you're okay. You're badly hurt, but you're okay. But if you go to 0 below, I believe you're just dust. You are dead. There is no body to resurrect. You are gone. It is truly brutal, and I can see how people are like, oh, it's horrible, especially if it's a group that are perhaps a bit softer and a bit love their characters.
Would a wish spell work?
Probably. Yeah.
This is the thing. If you're a high enough level to be fighting something with that sort of power, you're also a high enough level to maybe have wish or know someone that does.
Or counterspell or whatever it may be. But this brings me on to it. Sorry. Well,
I was just going to say, counterspell I think is good. Wish, you've got to be so careful with the wording, and it could just make everything worse.
Only if your GMs are git, but yeah, you have to be careful with
the
wording.
Have you met our GMs? You are one of our GMs.
What are you saying, Hazel?
You're all gits.
So this is an interesting discussion that I saw. I can't remember. I think it was on TikTok. Or no, it was on YouTube. And my first reaction was, oh no. And it was someone basically saying they had a battle, a fight went a bit wrong, a few bad dice rolls, and a character died. And for whatever reason, they weren't in a position to resurrect them. Revivify is a great example. Jim went down in the fight on the last game. You've got 1 minute to revivify him. It's a hard word to say, isn't it? Or he is dead, unless you get a high level caster, which we haven't got access to. So we were counting down the rounds, 10 rounds until he was dead. And I think the GM kind of had this attitude that it's up to the player whether that's the end of the character's story. I'm not sure how I feel about that personally, because it was kind of saying, is this where her story ends, for example? Is this where your character's story ends? And the player was like, no, I don't think it is. I don't want it to be. I can kind of respect that, but I just think it takes all the danger out of it, all of the risk reward. If you've got no, it brings me back to Superman. I never liked Superman because he's indestructible and pretty much invulnerable. You can't be a hero if you can't be hurt. And I know there's kryptonite and stuff, but your characters need to be vulnerable for their acts to mean something. And if nothing can kill you, they don't mean anything. To me, anyway.
No, I agree with you. It was a conversation I think we had when we talked about bringing back Jim's character in Curse of Strahd in another guise, but the fact that he lost his memory made him a completely different character to interact with.
Yeah.
Well, for him. For you, you've got layers.
Okay.
Can we talk about
just in chat? Aventurian says he's not played. Well, I don't know if he or she, but not played much D&D. But they've got a German equivalent called DSA, which is Das Schwarz Auge. I'm sorry about my pronunciation.
I apologise for that.
Yeah, I can't. I don't speak German, but I apologise. But yeah, the Black Eye. So yeah, we'd love to hear more about that. Actually, how easy is it to die in the Black Eye? Is it quite hard? Is it quite easy? Is it a gritty, dangerous game, or is it a bit more like D&D? Fantastical, and as long as you work together, you're probably going to get through.
Oh, I'm looking it up and thinking we can add this to our list of.
Yeah, should we try it?
What was it? We were talking about vampire. Does it?
Well, okay, I'm being a terrible academic and I'm reading the Wikipedia page.
Hey, there are sources on Wikipedia. It's not entirely.
No. We do not trust Wikipedia. Wikipedia is the death of academia, and I'm all for crowdsourcing intellect and knowledge, but just don't trust it. Be careful of it. Check your sources, and the sources in Wikipedia are quite often incorrect. It is my job to tell you this. I cannot help it. It is a professional issue.
Thank you for coming to Hazel's TED Talk.
Let's talk about academic integrity. But yeah, no, it's according to this, and I will check this information. It's the most successful role-playing game on the German market outside D&D. So yeah, seems pretty.
I will take a look at that. Thanks. Yeah, I'm always
interested. What else have we been talking about playing? Vampire the Masquerade. Matt's got his own RPG that he's working on.
Is it a cheeky time for me to just talk about that, because I think death factors really heavily in that? No, but it is on topic. And it's far off, it's getting close to play testing, but it's far off release, so I don't think it's advertising. But it's a Victorian era horror game, and I know Vaesen has come out, but I think the tone is very different, very, very different. This was a LARP that I ran back in 2004. If you've been to LARPs, you generally, you can take so many hits and then you fall over. We pretty much decided that you're a bit like RPGs, 5e. You don't get frightened when you're strong and you're not going to die. So it was like a 2-hit system. You get 2 hits, you're down, and then and this is what I'm using in the RPG. You have I'm not going to say the method because I don't want others to copy it before I've actually got it out there. But you take something at random and it randomizes how severe the wound is. So you don't know in a fight. One, you go down really quickly. You don't have 100 hit points or 50 hit points. You have 3 in my system. Everyone has 3. That's it. So you go down, then you randomize a wound, and it could be really, really severe to the point you can't walk very well, and so death is really easy in my system, which I know can take away from the role play. But that's where the horror and the danger and the sense of adventure and the buzz and the excitement come from for me. So I have literally designed a system that is really brutal. And I think in the character creation section, it does recommend that you have a spare character at all times, because you will someone will need one in the group. So, but I guess it's about what you like. I like that kind of. I always think with RPGs, I always say if you take the puzzle or the mystery or the battle, and then like work out the age of the players, and then divide it by 10, aim it at like 7 years old or something, they'll probably still get confused and not complete it. You can have neuroscientists and rocket scientists sit there and they will fail at, I've done it. They'll fail at working out the RPG. I'm rambling a bit now, but they'll fail at working out the problem.
Understand D&D if you're...
Do you know what I mean? Okay, I've just seen. So Aventurians, has lost a character, and he can't wait for it to happen. Oh, sorry.
No, that's Hazel can't wait for it to happen, which
Dwarf died to a trap 25 years ago. Wow.
I would be so upset if I died because of a trap, not a monster.
It depends on the trap.
It was a cool trap.
Like, it also depends, were you a character like a rogue where you can check for traps and it was your own failing? Or was it someone else's fault? Was someone else the rogue?
Or was it like self-sacrifice? Was it actually really cool? It's like, oh, I will sacrifice myself to save the rest, like throwing yourself on a grenade. Like,
yeah.
There's so many different ways it could be played. But yeah, I have been prepared for my characters to die, but they have not yet died. I'm interested to experience the emotional rollercoaster that will be, because I cry anytime we RP. We know I am an emotional wreck at all points. Like just my goblin wanting to go to school, crying.
Yeah, I cried at that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an interest. Sorry,
Goblin school is very sad and tragic, obviously.
No, but that's the thing. She's going to be taught by a Goliath. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. The artwork sounds amazing. I'd love to see that.
But it's like, because there are now a few characters that I have become attached to. So Eris is my baby who must be protected, and Alexander is my baby who must be protected. Like, what if he dies? What if he dies and he can't be reunited with his sister, and he can't somehow manage to save Cedric, and he can't redeem himself in the eyes of his father?
This is the thing, though, right? I think it's really not just good for roleplay, but good for me on an emotional level to consider my character's death, because just coming from this, that we all in our group are neurodiverse, as someone with borderline personality disorder, I feel things intensely, and I think if I just died without any sort of foreshadowing or anything, I would not necessarily know how to process that. Whereas now that I have considered what Cass would say, what she might ask people to do for her afterwards, I've given myself a sort of, I'm at peace with the idea of my character dying, which I know you have to be in, it's a game. But for me, just on a personal level, as a player, processing that, I needed to do.
Yeah, I think there's lessons for life in role-playing games. It is just a game, but we do love these characters and the stories they weave. And I think Hazel's point about throwing yourself on a grenade, we're constantly battling. I mean, I've never been shy to say that if my character dies, I want it to be heroic death.
I hate it every time you say that.
Yeah, every time there's a battle and it's going south, and I think the last battle was particularly difficult, and if it could have easily gone badly, I was quite ready to hold them off for as long as I could, which, to be frank, with how hard they were hitting, wouldn't have been very long. Might have been a round, maybe 2 if I got lucky. But again, it's more meaning, it's powerful, it's sacrifice. For me, and Gavin will say that definitely got a martyr complex. In the end, he just made me a character that wanted to destroy himself to save the world, because he's like, you do it anyway, so I'm just gonna make you a character that's like that. But yeah, it's really beautiful. But it was interesting because Jim seemed to enjoy Cedric dying a lot, although I don't think he enjoyed, oh, no spoilers, I don't think he enjoyed this death quite so much, although it obviously didn't stick. But it's
I think with Cedric, and there's something about Jim where he likes things that are a little bit off or a little bit weird. So the up down of Cedric kind of really suited him, and he knew that Cedric was the good boy and that he would be missed. And Jim wanted to witness the RP of the breakdowns that were about to happen.
Here's another thing, though. The DM needs to have these conversations with their players. I'd had a conversation with Jim beforehand because you all knew out of character that night hags were deadly at your level. I think you were level 3 at the time.
I didn't, because I'd not played enough D&D and I was very
didn't.
confused by the whole thing.
He did, and he told me, if you have to kill a player, I want you to know that I'm okay with that. And as a DM, that's really good for me to know. I still didn't go out of my way to specifically kill him, but I've forgotten the point that I was making.
You checked first. It was a consensual.
I checked.
Yeah.
We had a conversation. Not that you need consent to kill players. It's a game, but understanding, like what I just said about, I know I would take it quite emotionally if one of my characters died. That doesn't mean don't kill me. It just means maybe have a conversation with me if you're worried that this is a big encounter and you don't think I'm aware of that. But equally, Jim was very aware to move on to another character.
Oh, he's got so many characters rolled up. He could play them forever. But I think that goes back to that YouTube video I saw where the GM's attitude was, if my players aren't ready to die, then they don't die. I don't personally like that, but I guess that raises a question about resurrection and stuff like that, and how common should it be. So I talk about Gavin G. Smith's games, which were excellent. He made resurrection incredibly rare and incredibly hard. It wasn't just a diamond. We literally spent months with a spell jamming ship traveling to another world in another crystal sphere to recover some specific gem that we would need to bring back our cleric that we'd lost, that was a member of this royal family. It was probably a good portion of the campaign just bringing her back. It was not easy. It was not just drag the body over, turned a diamond to dust and they're back. It was very hard.
I think it depends on the setting of your game. Like if and how you and your players, like I said again, going back to a conversation, how attached they are. If you know that's going to hit them hard, do you put diamonds in a city nearby, or do you in Curse of Strahd? I think all of you would understand this is a deadly landscape and be ready to die if that happened.
Well, Absence did die. He died fair and square. I mean, Matt knew what we were going up against, but Absence didn't. So I was a good boy and I didn't meta game and I did it anyway. I think we all did. We played it knowing that we were probably going to die in that encounter. But you did give him a second chance, but it came at a cost. But I was I was a bit sad because I've tried to play Absence a few times and it doesn't have very good survivability for some reason.
I feel like I'm being really kind here and saying you should think about your players and whether they want to die. Like you said, I made sure there was a cost. I like the idea of there being a cost. Like in Strahd, it was the dark powers. You're making a bargain to get that second chance at life. You are losing something.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, yeah, it's been great, and I love the whole sort of descent into something more sinister that he went on following that before he caught himself, because he can't rely on the party to spot it. Don't ask a rogue for moral advice, by the way. They'll just tell you that it's fine to do the terrible thing that you're thinking about.
Yeah, but you would. It was for the sake of the child that the rogue had saved on multiple occasions.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe not the right conversation to be had. But with this, I think I would. Yeah, I would want a different thing for kind of each campaign that I'm in. So, Alexander, if he's down from death saves, like, gone, I don't want Revivify. I don't want anything. I want him to be dead because I feel that that's right for that and for him. I have no idea who would replace him. I know who my brain is saying, oh, it would be this person, but I don't think that would work. I wouldn't want it to be that because I feel that that's just going to confuse things. Eris, I think I would want up to Revivify, but I wouldn't want... Is Resurrection where they can come back as something else?
No, that's when they come back as them. Reincarnation.
No. Reincarnation is the druid. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
That's... We did have a... Paladins just die for some reason. Everyone says they're overpowered, but they die so often. We had another game, well, an earlier Icewind Dale game with another player, and he died, and we kind of went on a quest to find a druid contact of my character to bring him back. But he came back as a female Minotaur, so he was quite different afterwards from a dwarf to a female Minotaur.
That's what Hazel's saying. She likes there being a sort of choice, and with spells above Revivify, like Resurrection, I think the wording is it has to be a willing creature.
Exactly.
So you can choose not to come back.
You can say no. So Alexander could say no. That's my time.
Yeah, because I think Alexander only really has the one thing that he's living for, so I think he'd be quite happy to die. Eris, I wouldn't be happy about her dying, but I could let her die because I know what that would do to the group. And I think
that's why I would like to die. I just want them all to suffer.
You're all such horrible people. I want us all to have a happy ending.
I think it's because
want a happy ending too.
I think also more recently, because people have started to actually realise how young Eris is, I think it would have more of an impact after the last couple of games than it might have beforehand. Because I think that there's going to be more kind of, oh, we should have looked after her, we should have done this, we should have got her somewhere safe. Malice, do whatever the hell you want, because it kind of works for her character. She can be zombified, it can be this necromantic abomination. That's chill. I am fine with that. She can also die and become myconid food. Absolutely okay with that.
I think that's really what you want. Like if you wrote a will, that would be it, wouldn't it?
That is what she wants.
Please make
she's happy for her bones to be used as tools,
her
skin to be made into a book, whatever works.
She's creepy.
I also wanted to shout out, I think it's in the Tal'Dorei Reborn setting, rules, source book, they have something called Harrowing Return, which is when you do get revivified, come back from the dead, you roll on a table and then there's some sort of lasting effect, like you lose a limb, or I don't know, you lose your memory, or it's basically the dark gifts that I used in Curse of Strahd. You're losing something.
Yeah.
But that's an official mechanic that people use.
I like it. There should be a costing. I know Matt Mercer does the sort of ever increasing DC on Resurrection, which I kind of like, but I'm not sure. Aventurian says in DSA there'd be a job for Boron, the god of death. So we'd need a Boron priest to do a ritual, and it needs then to be a sacrifice, and there should always be a price for this. So yeah.
What level of sacrifice? That would interest me. Like there is.
It sounds like the elf from the earlier story. The sacrifice should be the elf that didn't spot the trap from the earlier story, so his dwarf can rest easy in the afterlife.
But imagine the moral conundrum if it became a bigger sacrifice than a diamond worth 1,000 gold. If it was a person or a
yes.
a part of you, that level of sacrifice from someone else, that would be some interesting role play, and that's got my brain thinking.
Yeah, exactly. But that's only going to work with players that are up for that level of role play. You know, we all know players that just prefer it as a bit of a. I've got friends that kind of it's more of a war game for them, and that's not going to might not bother them as much as it would us.
We're not married to the rules, but yeah, we've said we're a role play heavy campaign,
exactly.
and we can make the game what we want it to.
For us, that would work well.
Which I think segues really nicely onto. I wanted to finish because we have been talking for an hour on Matt explaining his homebrew.
Hey, this is my homie / bro.
My homebrew.
My homebrew.
Well, my homebrews homebrew rule for one last.
Yeah, like a final action. So weirdly enough, I've been writing my RPG. I started writing it. Well, I originally wrote it 2004, 2003, showing how old I am, and I've restarted doing it as a tabletop RPG now. And bizarrely, when I started rewriting it, there under the rules for death is when you finally die, you get a final action, you get a death action. Because I think for me in D&D especially, and a lot of RPGs, and it's something that I've intentionally written in a different way in my RPG, is when you get to 0 hit points, you're unconscious. There's no crawling and setting off the barrel of black powder. There's no there's no flipping the bird to the person that's killed you or spitting blood on them or whatever it is you want to do. There's no telling someone that you loved them all along. There is none of that. You are just unconscious, and if you fail your death saves, you go out without any last chance to make an impact on the world. And I think that's really unfair and poor storytelling. I just think it's poor storytelling, because to really make it count and for death to have weight, and I think that's the thing I always talk about, death needs to have weight and it needs to have impact. Give that character, you have died, but yeah, I basically, when they hit, and I know in D&D some people find it weird, but yeah, they get to 3 death saves, they fail, they kind of come to, they have that last surge of adrenaline, they're kind of fighting for their life, they're trying to cling on to life, but then realize quickly that it's too late. Healing spells won't work, nothing is going to stop that now. It is your last seconds, it's your last 6 seconds, make it count. So yeah, I give them one last action, they can get up and move, they can take an action, they can do anything they want. I even give them a bonus, effectively advantage, to make it more likely that it happens. So yeah, they can throw themselves on the grenade hazel, they can set fire to the, they can run over to the black powder barrel and explode it next to the big bad. They can cast teleport and teleport their friends away. Whatever it is, I think for me, I know for me, if I died, but I'd saved the party, or I damaged the bad guy, or even just told someone how I felt about them at the end, it would be so much more powerful. It would have so much more impact on the survivors, and more importantly, that death would count. It wouldn't just be 3 dice rolls and whilst unconscious. I think that's important. So, don't know.
And on that note, I think that's a lovely place to finish.
It is a lovely point from a Venturian. You could also make something out of the death too, maybe a new campaign, for finding a way to bring him back or something like that. I think that's the beauty of these games, isn't it? The stories can go wherever you want. And weirdly enough, you read any of the Forgotten Realms stuff. Sorry, I've started again.
No. We didn't need to finish. Well,
it's a great
final
point.
Thoughts.
Final thoughts. So, in some of the Drizzt books, R.A. Salvatore, because he's an elf, he's set over hundreds of years. His life is obviously very long, and he actually goes on adventures with a group of people. There's a dwarf and there's a human, and there's a couple of humans and elves and all sorts of things. And some of them die in his lifetime because he lives so much longer. But because it's D&D and there's resurrection, actually at a future time, he needs them. He brings them back. So he's a lot older, and he kind of brings them back. And they're not quite themselves. Things have changed. The world has changed, but that's a great point from Aventurian. It can lead to a whole new campaign. So it could be the Breakfast Club, Top, Cass, Eris, all the others have died. It's 200 years later, and there's another big calamity of the world, and the heroes of the time can't sort it. So someone brings them back. New campaign.
I think, yeah, what we're sort of saying is these deaths will be meaningful if we put meaning into the characters.
Yeah.
So no one would bring them back if we
if we failed abysmally.
Yeah, but also if we roleplayed, we could save the world, but be a bunch of assholes,
Yeah, one's enough. In any party. One's enough in any party. We don't need loads.
This is, I think the roleplay is why the prospect of death, it works both ways, I guess. The prospect of death makes the roleplay. I'm rambling and not making a very good final point, but
I think it's a good point.
It's important in roleplay heavy campaigns, I think, and important to discuss, considering the future of your characters will help make you a better role player and make the stakes higher for you, and if you discuss them in character, everyone else.
Yeah, totally. And if you've got players that are okay with death, I'm always looking for heroic death, and I know you hate it.
Stop looking for it. Stop it. Tok will live forever.
Wonderful. Like when you watch a movie and the hero's fighting, and I don't want to name any films in case people haven't watched them, but there was a film a year or so ago, and the ending was a sacrifice, and it was just such a powerful moment. Everything they did just meant so much, and the sacrifice was such a boon for everyone else. It's powerful. It's
right.
Powerful.
Log off. Stop watching now if you don't want any spoilers, because I want to play Guess What Movie Matt's talking about.
Oh, God.
So it's recent. Someone sacrifices themselves at the end.
Yeah.
Is it just themselves, or is it other people as well? Is it The Mist?
Just because.
Just themselves.
Just because I know you, can I make a guess already?
Go on.
No Time to Die.
Yes. It's a great ending.
It's a brilliant ending, but
brilliant.
We're so in sync.
So yeah.
Oh dear.
I really love it. 13th Warrior, another film that is a massive favourite of mine. I'd love to see the really long cut that never got released, but it's Beowulf in reverse, I always say. There's a couple of characters in that who are clearly not going to make it, so they make it their goal to make that what they've got left count, and it's inspiring ultimately to see people fighting through hardship and doing what's right for the people they love. It's just so powerful.
God, you do have a justice complex, don't you?
I do. Well, Aventurian says if a character has to die, there should be meaning behind it in some way. I totally agree. So don't run into traps, especially when an elf is the scout. Yeah, he's not over that. You'll get over it someday, but yeah, it sounds like it's too soon still.
No, you don't have to get over it. You have to get revenge.
Yeah. Come back as that dwarf's son and find that elf.
With meaning, I always think all my characters, they want to die with meaning. They're not bothered about a hero's death, but they want meaning. And if Eris dies, I want it to be like Boromir's death in Lord of the Rings, where it kind of brings the remaining group together. It gives them even more purpose. They don't have to do this thing because this person sacrificed themselves for them, and they have to get revenge. They have to do something.
Yeah, it's
That's
wonderful.
what I want.
Don't you think the other thing that I think we've forgotten to talk about, and what we're doing tonight is a perfect example. And Aventurian, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but that's a key point as well. That death was a long time ago from what was said. I think 25 years, perhaps. I don't know if that's how long
Yes,
you've
that
been
is
playing,
correct.
or that's when the death was. But they're stories that we retell. And ultimately, I've got a friend who's not with us anymore. And when I did the Pandoran League is the RPG, when we did the LARP, there was this wonderful scene, and people, we did 6 events, and some people had 6 characters. That's how often they died at those events. And my friend Malk, may he rest in peace. Loved him to bits. He was playing like a big game hunter type Victorian. Spoke a bit like Rowley Birkin, which, if no one's ever seen the Fast Show, is kind of an old guy who just kind of goes, huge guns, and he would just, like, you wouldn't really understand most of what he said, but he was very endearing, and you were always laughing. And all the people were being chased by these nasty monsters, and they'd barricaded themselves up in a chapel, and they were trying to sort of figure out what to do. The priest making holy water and all sorts of things. And Malk was outside as his character with his shotgun. He saw all the monsters, and he drew them off up the path. He sort of fired a shot in the air, got their attention, and then ran off up the path, drew them away, and said, "Run, run!" I've distracted them. The people in the hut didn't hear him and stayed in the hut. So his sacrifice was for nothing. But he ran up that path, and he had this cool, like, cap gun shotgun where you actually loaded little shells in, and when you cracked it, they popped out, and you loaded some more. And he's on the path, and he's loading. He's so scared. He's like dropping the shells. He's not role playing. He was actually scared. He did say after he's popping them in, he's firing, and some of them are going down, but there's too many of them. That was 2004. And Malk talked about that story until the day he died, for real, sadly. And we all still talk about those events because those death stories are amazing. Aventurians talking about the dwarf on the trap, it stays in our mind. It's a story that meant something to us, and it stays with us. Even if it is sad and sneaky elves were involved. So stories. It's what it's all about.
And on that note, we were trying to keep this. I'm sure we could talk for 3 hours, but our main streams are 3 hours, and we wanted to create some shorter content, but clearly we're just not capable
We're just
of it.
not capable. Yeah, we should quit while we're ahead and not bore anyone.
But yeah,
it's been good. It's been fun. But
please tell us about your character deaths or your character kills if you're a DM. Keep the conversation going in the comments. There's also a link to our Discord and our YouTube and Twitch if you're watching this back, because we don't really have much else in our lives, and we will reply.
I was going to argue then, but it's true. D&D and RPGs is my life. I love it.
Yeah, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'll see you soon.
Toodaloo.
Bye.
See ya.
See you, Aventurian. Thanks for joining us. It's been fun. I probably should raid somewhere, but I don't know how to do it, so I won't. Bye.